Hello everybody, my name is Fico and welcome once again to another super spectacular edition of Investigating True Gaming. This is where I go into the True Gaming subblog, subreddit, or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. The subreddit called True Gaming, and I just pull up a topic there and just kind of wail. Instead of answering it there, I just kind of decide to just come here and just ramble on it. And I haven't done this in a while, but I'm just gonna get right in. And the information of the authors who posted this is down in the description below. But basically, it's a very long post, and I decided to just kind of sort of compress it and condense it. And basically, I am just kind of going through a bit of the things, and the topic of it is hidden narrative. Now, what is this about hidden narrative? Basically, hidden narrative is what's, in terms of video games, is kind of sort of a backstory of, things that you could learn about the world, and you're learning it not through a main story, but it's like hidden narrative is basically bit points of a game that you sort of kind of pick up on your own. And there are a couple of examples here, like for instance, there are some games that just do not hit you with a story straight ahead, and one of them is Bloodborne, and we might as well just add Dark Souls and the Soul games there too, because basically you have a story, but it's not directive, it's not directly ahead of you. You're sort of kind of learning the backstory through item descriptions. You're going through bosses and things that they say, the NPCs, the way that they talk. So basically, this is sort of like a story that's being delivered to you, not directly. That's why it's called a hidden narrative, because you're learning about these things. In Skyrim, you'll learn about the lore of the whole thing that happens. And by the way, Morrowind and also Oblivion do this with books. There's a ton of stuff that you learn about, a ton of stories. There are some that don't exactly match up all that well, but there are some things that you learn about when you go into a world, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I read this in a book. Yeah, this is what's happening. In Destiny, I think it's called the Grimoire cards. There are these cards that you get, and they're supposed to explain the story a little better. The game is very light on story, but the cards are supposed to kind of just unlock things. I think they talk about enemies, or they talk about like things that happen. They don't give you a story that's directly. You're learning it through the cards. They also mentioned Dota 2. He also mentions Dota 2, about how you learn about the champions through wikis. I'll add League of Legends there too, because you're learning about people who are rivals, people who don't like each other, who like each other, who team up, who they represent, what's their backstory. It's a game that doesn't have a story, but the characters have a setup, and you're learning about this that is not being told in the game. The wikis do a good job at telling you what these characters are doing in these games. He also talks about Witcher 3 and Mass Effect 3, and I agree perfectly. Now, with these two games, there is a very potent story that's heading to you at non-stop action, but there's so much lore in those two games, they literally cannot just give you everything all at once. So you're learning things from the bestiary, you're learning how to kill these beasts, how they become these beasts in The Witcher 3 and Mass Effect, all the Mass Effect games. There's the Codex, where you're learning about the alien races, about the planets, about the events that took place, about the kind of weapons, about everything. It's just, you literally get a backstory upon the story that these characters give you. You also get a bunch of extra added story, so you're learning a lot about this world that surrounds you and the character. Now, in BioShock, which already has a tremendous amount of story, they also give you a bunch of back stuff, stuff that you don't learn, stuff that you learn through the audio logs. For instance, you'll learn about Fontaine, and you'll learn about Atlas, and you'll learn about Ryan through the first game, and you're learning about Comstock and the Lutesses and Lady Comstock in BioShock Infinite. So it's you learn a bunch of stuff. These aren't things that you learn through what you encounter with the characters. This is stuff that you hear and you find it all around. It's not something you have to do. That's another thing about this thing about hidden narrative. These aren't things that you have to do, but the narrative that you get from the games is not all there. So this is just sort of like added extra bonus content that you get all over the place here. They also mentioned stuff about Gone Home and her story. I've never played her story, and I'm gonna add Dear Esther in this too, because you sort of kind of unravel the story. You arrive in Gone Home, you're this person who gets to this house and you're sort of learning what is going on. You're finding clues all over the house. It's not scary. It's got atmosphere, that's for sure. It's very atmospheric, but it doesn't seem to have a story that you're following. You're just going through the house, finding these audio tapes, and you're discovering who these people are. You're learning about your mom, you're learning about your dad, you're learning about your sister, and you're learning about yourself too, through going through closets, hidden passages. You are literally unraveling every bit of story, every bit of narrative in this. Now, some people don't claim it's a game. I myself, I'm a bit on the fence. I do think it's not a traditional game. I used to think it wasn't a game, but there's this thing that they always say that games like these do not have a save state, but I've just kind of been analyzing this a little bit, and yes, technically, traditionally, you do not have a fail state. You don't die in this game, you don't kill anything, you really don't. There isn't a story or an objective list. You are literally just going through the house and unraveling all these things, and Dear Esther is it's got the narrative thing going, and you're just sort of kind of like going through an interactive experience. Now, whether you want to call it a game or not, the narrative of those games are definitely hidden, and I'll include Fez because it's just that the person mentioned it. I don't like Phil Fish at all, but I cannot deny the game that he made. The Fez game has a tons of hidden meanings and tons of hidden things going all over Fez. And basically that's the example of a hidden narrative, because you're basically just going through these worlds, finding these pieces, but as you're going through these worlds and solving these puzzles and uncovering clues and figuring out how to unravel every mystery in that game, it's quite obvious that you could just go through it without doing any of that, but you get this extra layer, like this hidden world where you're still just kind of like, oh my god, what's going on here? You're just uncovering the puzzles. Now, this Redditor obviously added a few more things there, and she added 7 questions, and I'm gonna answer all 7 of them right now. So, the first question is, how do you feel about hidden narrative? And the answer to that is, I actually like it. I like it. I like that you get an extra content. I like that you can learn more about the game without just kind of like setting it off so that you could do it on your own. Don't count on the characters constantly giving you all this dialogue. Obviously, that's a good way to kind of just cut down on spending so much on having all of this told to you by the characters, but even the characters unveiling a lot of narrative that you aren't told mainly through the main objectives of the game is really great. You get to learn about the world. You get to learn about characters. You get to learn about places. You get to learn about so many things. And they are not made just obvious to you. You kind of have to like work a little bit hard, pay a little extra close attention for those little nuggets of knowledge that you get fed in. So I really like that. What games you think got it right and wrong? Not quite sure how it got it wrong. I might have to add Fez into it, because even if Fez did it good, it almost made it kind of just way too difficult. It's just kind of made it so that it just encrypts it in a way that is just puts this barrier in front of you that's almost kind of unbearably difficult at some point too, but you know, that's just me. But I think when it comes to hidden narrative, sometimes I like to focus on the good ones. And Fallout 3, I'm currently replaying Fallout 3. And that game is a masterpiece in my opinion. It's one of my all-time favorite games, and I've added an extra bit of content, and a lot of that is also a hidden narrative. For instance, you have to listen to Existence 2.0 in order to unlock a quest. You don't know you have to do that, but you're listening to this narrator, this robotic voice, just telling you that. And this is just from a mod. But take the mods out, you still learn a lot from what you learn about the characters. The side quests that you do, you're learning about what happened in these certain locations, the audio logs that you find, the terminals that you hack. It's all there. You're learning about Vault-Tec, you're learning about the bombs falling, you're learning about the Capital Wasteland, about the super mutants, about everything. You're just going around and you're discovering all of these things. Even that the Nuka-Cola challenge, you're learning about the freaking soft drink that is the equivalent of Coca-Cola. You were learning about Nuka-Cola through this girl and telling you how awesome it and Quantum is too. So it makes you, yeah, I'm gonna go get you your Quantum. And I'm actually not doing so bad in that quest. Deus Ex, it does it so well too. And Deus Ex may be one of the greatest games ever created. I'm talking about the first one. And Human Revolution is good, but I just absolutely love having these conversations and going and hacking these terminals, and you're learning a lot about the intrigueness, even throughout stuff that is not included in the main quests. You sorta also just I just enjoy just unraveling the stuff the characters don't tell you. Unreal, the very first Unreal game, it's one of my favorite games of all time as well. One of my favorite first-person shooters of all time. It's kind of what put Cliffy B and Epic on display. Unreal was just amazing. Your character didn't talk, and basically you would go through these and you would have a translator, and you would be deciphering all the alien races, all the logs that you found from humans. You would find about the scar, about I'm forgetting the names of these, the thin guys that look like Buddhists, never mind. I'll find out later and I'll add it here on a comment there. But you are basically launched in a world that you're going level through level through level through level through level. But as you go, you hear that wee wee, and you hit F2, and then that's where you unlock like what it says. And I absolutely was always immersed with that. I really, really like that. So hidden narrative, I not only like it, but it's all over throughout my favorite games. And third question is, how do you feel about two people having different narrative experiences from the same game? Should a game offer two different narrative experiences based on players' curiosity? Thinking about it, looks like an open world game offering different experiences, right? What do I feel? Well, to me, it's subjective, and people are going to have different experiences with any game that they play. You be surprised at the games that I like and some people don't like. Some people will find the experience of a game incredible, and there are some people that will not like it. And in terms of feeling about two people having different narrative experience for the same game, the fact that a game could actually offer that, I have really think it's great. Because for instance, when I play a game like Demon's Souls, it's just me trying to survive, trying to go through the game until the game tells me to stop and you're okay and you've beaten the game. But people tell me that that game is so rich in story. What about Five Nights at Freddy's? What about the Five Nights at Freddy's series, where there is a story that is literally just hidden throughout the game? You are learning through these games. You are unraveling the narrative 4 games in, and the story's just unwinding with every single discovery that you make, with the hidden objects. It's literally just unveiling it. But you could also be the guy who is just playing the game to survive the 5 nights, or the 6th, or the 7th, or the 8th night that they keep adding in there, or he keeps adding in there. So the fact that some people have that experience and others have a completely different experience, it just goes to show how powerful games are. It's like movies. Some people just have to pay extra close attention for those hidden pieces that will make you sort of just think about the movie a little deeper. Some people don't do that, and they still have a completely different experience. And that's kind of where we have this thing that is subjective about movies as well. But video games, I don't mind that at all. I do not mind that one bit whatsoever. The next question is, what about when you finish a game and discover you missed a whole subplot because you didn't look hard enough? Well, it makes you play the game again, and I think that's cool. It's very cool to be able to play a game and then go through it again with a completely new set of eyes. You could be going through that game and going, I'm just gonna go through this game, browse through it, and I just want to beat this game. And then later you play this game down the road and you're like, wow, I cannot believe I didn't read this lore. Why is this so important? This is why it's so important. Yes, this is why it's so important. I like this. I like it. I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep reading the logs. I'm gonna keep learning about the world. And when you see these things unravel in the game that you've already gotten the experience of playing before, it feels pretty good, because if you had a game experience that you loved and you replay it again just to see what you've missed, it's very, very cool. I really, really like it. I really like that you have a brand spanking new outlook of what you've been playing before. You like that there is a new thing, there's a subplot, there's something that you've missed, there's something that you could have done, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I totally have this new experience, and you appreciate the games a lot more. So I don't mind when I miss something in the game, except if it's like a really, really long game and you can't go back. That's where I have a problem, because if you hide it really, really hard, you really have to work really, really hard to find it. And sometimes it's not so easy to someone be like, go back and thinking, oh, did I miss anything? No, it doesn't look like I missed anything. So sometimes the hidden narrative can work against you because you're going through the game and all of a sudden people are telling you, oh, did you do this? Like, what? No, how was I supposed to know that? How was I supposed to know that? And in those cases I'm kind of like, ugh. But I don't mind it. I really don't. Do you look for the hidden lore? Not as much at first. Kind of when I'm playing through the game, I kind of just want to see what the game offers. Kind of just root it down little by little. There's some games like Mass Effect where I totally just went through the whole thing, just every inch that I could at first. Some games make you want to do that. Fallout 3, I'm doing that right now too. I'm going through each and every location, seeing if I could find anything, see if it unlocks anything, and I am just kind of engrossing the game in a new set of eyes, and I do that by finding the lores, by talking to the NPCs. It is a lot of work. There are a lot of terminals. Like, go to the Citadel. If you go to the Citadel, there's endless terminals all over the place, and you're learning about vault locations, and you're learning about the Brotherhood of Steel, and the super mutants, and the outcasts, and the Enclave, and you're learning about power armor usage, and you're learning about the war. It's just a lot. There's a lot of stuff, and when you're engrossed in the story as I am with Fallout, that's just kind of makes you want to look for it more. How do you feel about having to go to YouTube to find out more about the lore? I equate this to basically everyone who finds out that a game has a ton of hidden narrative. I go to Silvermont and a couple of other YouTubers that do nothing but Dark Souls, and they also talk about the enemies in the game, about the lore, about the world, and to tell you the truth, I think it's fine. I mean, I find it that it's kind of a shame that sometimes we go to YouTube and we find out that, wow, there's actually a story hidden deep in this super complicated game that you're just so afraid that you're gonna die. You gotta be on your toes constantly, all the time. And to tell you the truth, the reason I got Demon Souls was because I kind of wanted to go through the Soul games because I got really into the stories, the way that these YouTubers expressed it. And Markiplier with Five Nights at Freddy's, he basically is just this storyteller who is, you're watching him and you're laughing your ass off every time he just goes into these commentaries. And basically when he starts to talk about the story, about the lore, about things that he discovers in the game, I'm pretty sure that some people won't immediately understand it, where you're just kind of like, for those who played the game, they see another person play it and make these discoveries and make these predictions. That sort of is cool. It's very cool that you see how people are unwinding the story. I don't feel that that's too much of a bad thing. If anything, it kind of sort of just shows you just the things the hidden narrative procedure just kind of goes through. It's very weird. In a way, I find it kind of but at the same time, I don't find it too much of a bad thing. I don't think it's a terrible thing. I mean, all you're doing is you're just watching somebody just unravel a story. You couldn't do it. And like I said, you sort of learn about this stuff. You see the game with new eyes. The only difference is that instead of you doing the discovery, you're just seeing somebody else do the discovery for you. I don't feel too terribly bad about it. I mean, sometimes the games, you won't play them, and then all of a sudden you're learning about the enemy's origins. They're finding out how they find out the narratives too. So, in a way, these people are actually helping you uncover the hidden narratives too. So, I think they're doing you a service too. But that's just me. And the last question is, can we blame the players if they didn't like a game because of the lack of story? If it was hidden in plain sight, the developers might have meant for people to look for it, but at the same time, it was completely optional. Now, this is a very good question. Can't we blame the players for not liking the game if the story was just hidden? If you go to a game like Dark Souls and you go out of it and you're like, but this is kind of light on story. I mean, I don't think I like it too much. Well, I mean, not really. I mean, since the narrative was kind of chosen to be hidden in the first place. I mean, this is a game where it primarily focuses on just surviving. If you go through the games that you're playing, you kind of have to just, like, if you're not given too much, about it. You kind of have to just explore the game. Now, I don't blame the players. I kind of blame the developers a little bit because they've made the story, they've chosen the story to be hidden. They've chosen the story to be light on story, to be given you directly, and then you discover the story later on your own. This is part of the reason why I think not a lot of people liked Destiny. There is a ton of stuff that you discover about Destiny, but you wouldn't know about it if you've just been playing the game, you didn't look at the cards, or they even told you that you had to go to another place to view some story. You're sort of just kind of figuring and being told about these things, but there is no context in them because you have to just kind of find them out on your own. But that was Bungie's decision. That was their decision. The players are not at fault for not getting a story given to them the way they're normally accustomed to. I feel as though perhaps maybe the developers might have just come out and said that. Maybe as a pro tip, you should probably tell your players that in the future, if your narrative is going to be hidden, you might want to tell them that the story might seem light, but that's only because it's hidden in plain sight. And that's how we designed the game. We want you to discover it. We want you to go out there. We want you to go and discover the world of Destiny on your own. I'm using Destiny as an example, but this applies to pretty much any game that has a story clamped with a hidden narrative. I don't blame the players if they didn't like the game if the story was in plain sight. Some players are different. It goes back to the very first point, and I do think not the first point, it's the third point about the two people who have a completely different experience. Clearly, if there are people that are having two different experiences because of the way this narrative's being delivered, you can't really fault the player because of that. You can't fault him too much. Basically, it's just that this kind of narrative is not as in your face. It's not being delivered to you. It's not linear. It's hidden, and you are basically in that game just kind of going through the notions, trying to discover what you can, but I don't fault the player. I myself don't blame myself too much because the last thing that I'm thinking about in Demon Souls is this pretty place. I just want to figure out what do I have to do. But knowing about that hidden narrative, it does give me the incentive to keep going forward and keep discovering it. But like I said, I don't think I can fault the players. And as for the developers that have meaning to have people look for it, but at the same time was completely optional, that is part of why I fault the developers more than the players, because they chose it to be optional. And optional is not going to, it basically just means you do not have to do it in order to progress the game. So if you chose this narrative to be an optional narrative, the players cannot be faulted if they didn't have to do it to go forward. See what I'm saying? They didn't have to do that part of the story either. So the narrative is hidden, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to. So you're not getting stunted by this game. Maybe if it did, it might give you more incentive, but since it's optional, since you could just go through the game without having to care about it, well, that's the way the developers created the game, and that is what they wanted to show as their story, which basically you can't, I'm saying is that you can't really blame the players if they didn't get the game that the developers thought they were going to get, if they're being given a narrative that is both optional and hidden. If the player doesn't like the game, guess what? You can always find out about the game later, just like it was previously discussed on the other objects, the other things below here. And you basically can just learn how to like the game again. That's the good thing about this, is that if you didn't dig it because of the lack of story. You learn how the story unravels. You then intrigue the player to go back to it again, and before you know it, that frown turns upside down. That it basically goes like, oh, okay, I think I see this. And that will be it. I am sorry that I didn't mention the subredditor author's name at the very beginning, but I don't think it's, I mean, I'm doing this for the first time after a while, so so ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys feel about Hidden Narrative? Victaru, I want to know what you think about Hidden Narrative. Your brain is fascinating, and people on my channel want to know what you think. Actually, I want to know what everybody thinks. Everybody, comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you want to answer the 7 questions, I'm going to add those 7 questions there, and I'm going to ask you to also read the subreddit too, so that you guys can also go to the person's subreddit page, leave your opinions, upgrade it. It's very, very fascinating, and I urge you guys to follow True Gaming, because it is a subreddit that is dedicated to having meaningful, insightful, and high quality discussions on anything gaming. Seriously, it's deep thinking, and it's usually very nice. It's the place where I would just say, if Reddit was a dark tunnel, this is the place where you would see like a little lantern going, hey, over here, the exit is this way. And then you find it's a really cool place where people are just talking about deep things about gaming. But anyway, that's all I have to say about it today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry that it took so long. I apologize. I mean, I went through CEO, went to AFO. I'm still adjusting to this new schedule, and overall, it's just I'm developing a new routine, and it's working out very good. And, well, that's all I have to say about that. Till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Fico. That was my gaming mind. Peace out.